It's an extremely bright and beautiful morning here at Randkiesfontein Training Establishment, North Rand, and we reflect back on the year 2014 when the horse of the year was a son of dynasty called Legislate. Thereafter, the following year, from the same stable, was a horse called Futura, also a son of dynasty. And reflecting back on the South African Derby, which was run in the 2014-2015 season by a horse called Legal Eagle, himself a son of Gray's Inn, he subsequently went on to win the Lormerans Queen's Plate at Kenilworth Racecourse, and then South Africa's other premier Grade 1 weight for age contest, the Horse Chestnut over 1600 metres at Turffontein. If he were to win the President's Champions Challenge, it would be very hard to imagine that any other horse would be eligible for Horse of the Year. He wouldn't even need to compete in the KwaZulu-Natal winter season, but somehow that season always seems to play a significant role. We've spoken to Michael Azzi during the course of the week. Now it's the chance to speak to South Africa's champion trainer, Sean Tarry, about his runners. Carry On Alice, Samurai Blade, of course, Legal Eagle, who's the hot pot favourite for the 4 million rand President's Champions Challenge, where he's ably supported by 3 other runners in French Navy, who was champion 3-year-old last year, Stonehenge, and of course, Halve the Deficit. Here's Mr. Sean Tarry. On the subject of knockout blow, we know that French Navy is certainly the kind of horse that can deliver that knockout blow. Hasn't been at his brilliant best of late, but you wouldn't be running him unless you've got him right, and there's good reason for that as well.
I think he'd won the London News, and I said he's on the ball already. I wanted to just take the foot off the gas because we've got a lot of ground to cover in this season, and I may have just eased up on him a bit too much. I planned to bring him back in the Hawaii, which was a 1400, and there was a Pinnacle Plate over 1800 the same day, which seemed like a weak field, and I made the mistake of changing my plan, and he needed the run over the 18 instead of just allowing him to run in the 14 and let it bring him on. The next race, I think just everything went wrong. We had the pace, Stonehenge went to the front, and he was forced wide at an early stage. He normally likes to follow them through and run on the last bit, but I mean he was exposed around the bend already, he was 3 wide. So I sort of feel you can put a line through those 2 runs. It's hard to compare his form going into the race with Legal's, because Legal's he's got no blemish, but he is the kind of horse that can certainly upset. Yeah, he's in good shape.
You'd have to say that from the Algoa Cup to the Administrators or the Premier's Champions Challenge is a massive leap, but boy oh boy, this guy's progressive and there's stake money to be earned.
Yeah, no, Stonehenge, he is progressive. He's a horse I've always rated. I don't think, I think people are going to look at the result and think it was a flash in the pan run, but he's solid. His form's solid. When you ride him according to the way he needs to be ridden, he gives you what he's got, and I don't think he'll disgrace himself.
Well, it has to be said that Hill 54 was also a winner of the Algoa Cup, and he came out and won the J&B Met.
Yes, listen, who knows what the right races to win on the way up are. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you're progressing and you're winning features and you're winning them well, is there a feature race that sort of condemns you to go further? Yeah. I don't think so. So, I think he's done everything asked of him. I'm thankful that the 7th Rock Syndicate has done well with the 3 horses that they've had, and obviously he's the best by far. And it's a feather in the stallion's cap to obviously produce winners that are going over this distance.
Well, talk about diversity. You've got a Gray's Inn, you've got a Count du Bois, you've got a 7th Rock, and you've got a horse by Right Approach who's unlikely to win, but he's a hard knocker and he's been a great soldier to you.
Yeah, he is a great soldier. He's a horse that I'm very fond of. He's got a phenomenal temperament. He always gives his best. When he runs a bad race, there's a good reason for it. And he's a war horse. At the end of the day, he knows he's going to battle, and I'm sure he'll run a good race.
Well, you've got a horse that happens to be running today, a week out from this race, called Never Give In. And that really epitomises Carry On Alice. She was absolutely sparkling in her last win when you said, well, there's a little bit of meat on the bone. You must have been delighted with that performance.
Yeah, Andrew, it's always a bonus when they win a prep like that they're not asked for too much. And, you're only 2 weeks out, so it wouldn't have been ideal if she had a hard run. So I am upbeat about her chances and her well-being. As I said, we're still a week out, but at this stage we're on track, and I'm satisfied.
Carry On Alice has picked up the lead now. Gone about a length and a half clear from Ha Lucy on the outside. Seattle Lady, then Silver Class with 200 to go. But Carry On Alice, she went down to the start on her own and she's coming home lonely. Kamalo looking between his legs for the opposition and he's riding her cold. And it's going to be Carry On Alice by 4 lengths.
And then, of course, Samurai Blade. He's a horse that you've always had a nice little skip in your step about, and he looks to be getting to the kind of trip that probably will be his most effective.
Well, Andrew came to me with a big reputation, and I really saw very little when he arrived. And he's been improving all the while. He surprised me actually when he ran second in that 1450. That run opened my eyes a little bit, and I'd planned to go into the Derby trial with him, but after speaking to Larry, he felt that let's take a chance, and I thought why not, and I'm glad we did. He ran a decent enough third. Listen, Abashiri looks impossible to beat at the end of the day, and it's a Group 1. We're hoping to pick a piece of the pie, and his preparation's gone well.
Well, whether he's named after the great Cameroonian soccer player or not, Miller's World is a horse that you've seen fit to put in the Derby as well.
Yes, there were only 8 noms originally, and we decided to put him in. Maybe coming a little bit too soon for him. I mean, he did get beat in the handicap company in his last run, but at least we'll know if he's up to the Daily News or something like that after this.
I hate talking about chickens before they hatch, but it would be fair to say that if Legal Eagle were to win this race, it would be almost impossible for anything to be Horse of the Year other than him.
You know what, Andrew, those subjects I try and stay out of, because what happens behind closed doors I'm not too sure, and people find different reasons and focus on different achievements, and some people look at the season, some people look at one particular race, so I'm not quite sure, but I'd rather just plan his career and go race by race.
Final question today. You've talked about the brilliance of National Colour, Mythical Flight. There have been lots of very good horses that have passed through your hands, Pomodora. But we asked you straight after the running of the Lormeran's Queen's Plate if Legal Eagle was the best horse you trained. I'm going to ask you now, is he the best classic horse you've ever trained?
At this stage you have to say yes. I mean, at the end of the day, he's won the Derby, he's won the Queen's Plate, he's won the Horse Chestnut. I felt he was very unlucky not to win the July, even though I suppose there wasn't much talk about it after the race. Yeah. But if you watch and see how he was going, at the end of the day, it was a sparkling run. He, as a 3-year-old, he gave all the horses a lot of weight, gave them a hiding in that prep run for the July, and obviously Cape Town's not easy when the wind blows and you're leading. Even though you're probably in the right place for the pace of the race, it's a hard 2000, and there's no excuses. We were beaten on the day, but I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose how much better do they get? I'm not too sure.
One final question, Sean, and this is reflecting on Anton Marcus's post-race interview in the Horse Chestnut. You couldn't blame Johan Janssen van Vuren for going for the race with a 3-year-old on the back of Noah from Goa's performance in the Lormeran's Queen's Plate, and halfway down the straight he gave you something to aim at. Anton found himself in the front that he didn't necessarily want to be there.
Yeah, he was certainly a reluctant leader, and yet that you could see by the fractions, but at the end of the day, Anton certainly didn't panic, and I think that's the telling factor with a horse like this, because he, as I said, he has to build up to it and gain momentum, and Anton didn't panic. He just waited. He knew where he was in the race, and I think once he started to unwind, the result was never in doubt.
Yeah, well, I know you're not a man for semantics or romantics, but it was a hell of a commentary when he said he's taking dead aim. It must have given you a really good feeling with seeing the way he was travelling.
When you see your top horses in top gear, it is a thrill, and I mean, isn't that why we're all in the game?